Today I want to talk about face detect. I think it's a pretty important subject, and I think camera manufacturers and critics alike are leaning on it a little too hard, and they're weaponizing it. So let's talk about that. Here I am! How are you? It's so good to see you again, and this is the first time that I am trying out the Z50mm 1.8, and I am shooting at 1.8 at wide open. That is an amazing depth of field that we can see behind us there, and I think that is delicious bokeh in the background, and I am very impressed by everything I'm seeing. It's the first time I've done it. I just plugged it in and had a look, and it was like, wow, this could be the new future for how I shoot, because I love short depth of field, and it's just all about keeping the focus, isn't it? Today I wanted to talk about face detect and eye detect, and the fact that I feel like there is too much emphasis placed on its importance, because there are so many different use cases for photographers that, true, for some photographers it's absolutely essential and you need it and you want it, but for so many photographers it's just simply a specious statement, which just means it's false, it's misleading, misguiding, misdirecting. It's specious. And we listen to it and we go, wow, 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 we need all of these megapixels, and we need, oh God, I've got to have face detect. Hold it a second. Do I? I don't shoot faces. So I want to give you three reasons, and there's probably more reasons, but I want to give you three reasons today as to why I think, three assumptions that we all overlook when we're being told we need face/eye detect. That's face/eye detect. Three reasons as to why it might not be true for you. Of course, it might be true for you, and if it is true for you, you probably don't even want to listen to this, and I'd say bye for now. It's been great seeing you. But if it's not true for you, then take a moment to think, when you're buying a camera, maybe the Pentax is the best camera for you. You get good bang for buck, you get good resolution. You don't need whiz-bang fast speed. Or maybe a good old Hasselblad from 5 years ago, which gives you the most outstanding image quality. But it's slow. It shoots 1 frame a second. Because you don't need face detect. So three reasons. So reason number one, which I've already been talking about, is if your use case is, well, I don't actually photograph faces. I photograph trees. I photograph fridges. I photograph thongs, as in the things you wear on your feet. Well, you might photograph G-strings as well. There are so many different things that photographers photograph that do not include faces. And in my case, I love to shoot cities. That's what I do. I shoot cities. So does that mean I need trash can detect? Does that mean I need brick detect? Does that mean I need building detect? So I think you can see where I'm going there, that in some use cases, face detect is completely irrelevant. And you know, even when photographing animals, that's something that's coming now. I don't know. Anyway, that's reason number one. Faces might not be the most important thing you photograph. You might not photograph any faces with this particular camera that has face or eye detect. Cleaning up my office has meant that I have found a lot of really interesting things, and I just wanted to show you some of them. Because some of my gear has been sitting around for years. And when you've been taking photos for 35 and been a professional for almost 30, man, some stuff happens. This is a Mamiya RB 6.7. This is a beautiful camera, shoots film on these film backs. And very important, reason number two, which, you know what, I haven't seen anybody talk about it. I haven't seen anybody do it. Maybe this is something I should try. I should upgrade my Sony a7R III to the latest firmware, get that improved face detect and eye detect, and then see what it does. And this is groups. What happens in a group of 5 or more people? So if you're an event photographer and face detect's on, how do you choose which of the 20 faces in front of you? How does it choose? How does the camera choose? And it can't. It doesn't know which face you want. Perhaps it assumes to the middle of the frame. I don't know. So in this case, with large group photography, I'm not sure face detect helps you. What's going to help you more than anything else is good, even, well-distributed light, so shadows don't fall on people, and a good depth of field. Don't shoot wide open if you're shooting a group. Give me a good f8 or more, not too much more. That's going to be way more important than face detect. Find yourself a central focus point a little bit closer to the front than the back, and that's going to give you a better result than messing around with face detect that doesn't know which face you want. By the way, I just wanted to highlight that these marks here at the bottom of the screen, this is some sort of reflection or refraction in the lens, which I quite liked, so I left it there, just in case you're wondering. 12 shots per roll. I bought this, I think in about 1996 or something like that, and cost me maybe 3 or 4 grand. It absolutely weighs a ton. Like, I would say, with this thing on it, it's probably 3 or 4 kilos, somewhere around that. I paid $600 for this lens, and as you can see, 1 second around to 1/400th, what is that, f4.5 through to f45. And this was the wide angle lens, if I remember correctly. What do we got here? No, completely incorrect. This was my equivalent of a zoom, that is a 250mm, which I'll have to work out and tell you what that is. Reason number 3, and that is you may photograph faces, and if you're an old guy like me, I'm really not that old, but you've been in the industry a long time, you've been playing with cameras, in my case, almost 40 years, face and eye detect are very new. They are very new. I think in 35mm cameras, to the best of my understanding, and please let me know if I'm wrong, they have only been around, 2 or 3 years, perhaps, face detect and eye detect. Eye detect's obviously very new. Whereas focusing in the 70s and 80s up until then was largely manual. Then beyond that, we started to get, so you actually had to focus by hand. You had to work it out for yourself. The first camera that I had was the Pentax K1000, and it had a line that you had to line up. You had to line the picture up. There was no such thing as autofocus in a camera like that. So you had to focus, and you had to do it yourself, and you had to make it work. Then we did have autofocus, but it wasn't finding faces. You could move a little spot around on the camera and place that spot on the part you wanted in focus, half press your button and acquire. And that is how focus has worked pretty much. And then we had more modern 3D tracking algorithms which helped us find the subject in the frame that was moving. So this stuff is all great, but face detect and eye detect is new. So point number 3 is that, well, plenty of us don't really need it. If you're into studio portraiture, this sort of stuff, even so I can see that it's beneficial, perhaps, depending on what eye you want to go for. You can acquire this sort of stuff pretty quickly, and like me, who's got the muscle memory and has been doing selecting, little selector for probably since my Nikon F5, so 1997, I've been doing it for over 20 years by hand, and I've been very happy and very comfortable, and I've nailed focus 99.9% of the time. And in my experience, these algorithms aren't perfect, and I'm sure their hit rate is similar, if not worse. It's a 127. This is a 127 f3.8 to 3.2. So this is sort of a medium lens, because this is a really large, like it's a 6 by 7 centimeters. It's enormous compared to 35mm. Yeah, 65. So I reckon that was maybe close to like a 28, but that's a 65, 65, 4.5 to 32. With these lenses, it's hard to understand, but the shutter is in the lens, which is how medium format worked. They are my three reasons why I think face detect and eye detect has been weaponized. It is being overly marketed to people who think, gosh, I have to have that. But I think you need to make the decision as to whether you do actually have to have it. So from my perspective, it might be relevant for some people today in their stills work. It might make it better for them. For many of us, we're happy with what we do and how we do it, and it works just fine. And we can keep doing that. Of course, with computer algorithms and computer chips just getting faster and faster all the time, face and eye detect will become probably absolutely perfect within the next decade. And what I'm saying today will be moot. But it'll also be in every camera, so it'll be moot. You won't have to decide. But right now, I think you've got many choices, and I think there's a lot of leaning on these features when maybe the things that are more important to you, because you like to go climb up a mountain and take photos of trees or rocks or rivers, face detect is irrelevant. And you want a camera that's tough. You want a camera that can handle the snow and handle the rain and handle the dust. That's what you want. That's more important. So don't get sucked into the face detect, eye detect vortex when it might not even be relevant to you. So that's with stills. Conversely, I actually think face detect and eye detect in video is far more important than it is in stills. So if you're someone who is going to be doing exactly what I'm doing here right now, then it's absolutely essential. It really helps, as long as it's working, which it doesn't always for some reason. As long as it's working, it helps you make sure that you know you're going to be in focus and you can film yourself without an operator if you don't have a screen. Like I said, sometimes it doesn't work. This is the fourth time I've shot this piece. I was trying to shoot it on the A7R3 and face detect was usually pretty solid, but for some reason it's not. And I've spent a lot of time in the menus trying to work out what's going on. I don't know if I've pressed something. I don't think I have, but I've got to dive in there and try and fix it. So when it works, it's great, but when it doesn't work, it's really frustrating. So there could be an argument that the time wasted in relying on face detect, it might actually be quicker just to have longer depth of field and set a focus point and off you go, which of course is how I did it just a year or two ago. But anyway, when it does work, and I'm happy to say that the majority of the time I think it does, and I will rely on it moving into the future. For video, I think it's really important. If you're a vlogger, it's really important. I also did another shoot last week at Melbourne University, and I was using the face detect to just help me find faces whilst I was shooting. So that was great. And I was also using the screen touch on the Nikon Z7, which all worked really, really well. So there you go. That's my thoughts on face detect and eye detect. It's not essential for everyone. Don't get sucked into it if it's not important for you. And remember, you've been focusing on faces for maybe 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years and beyond, and you haven't needed it up until now. So buy the camera that suits all of your needs better. And the way I look at it is this. Let's say one camera has some sort of face detect, but it's not that great. You give it a 5 out of 10. Whereas you buy a Sony, you give it a 9 out of 10. But then there's all these other things that are important to you with the camera, like ergonomics, EVF, all of these other things. So the whole averaged score on the camera that you really love might end up being a 9 out of 10. But on the Sony, which has great eye detect and face detect, it might be an 8 out of 10 or a 7 out of 10 because it doesn't handle the weather as well, maybe isn't as tough, maybe doesn't fit your hand as well, doesn't fit all your legacy glass, etc., etc. So all I'm saying is weigh up everything, not just face detect or eye detect. As always, I would love to know what you think about all of this. I think it's really interesting stuff. How we see the world, how we perceive the marketing, and how we make our next decisions on what we're going to do with the next camera that we buy. So I'd love to know your thoughts. Do you rely on eye detect and face detect? There are literally millions of people out there using these cameras. I'd love to hear what percentage of people actually are relying on it and using it every day, all day. And if it's more than 50%, well, that's really exciting. That's a quick adoption. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. And of course, please subscribe if this is your first time here and you're liking this short depth of field. I'm loving this short depth of field. Please share, because that makes us all smarter. And please like. We love a good like. Thanks so much. All right, look after yourself, and I will see you very soon. Bye for now.